Welcome and ting and ting and ting. How you all doing out there? Another reaction here for you to check out with me. You understand? This one is called Top 5 Haunted Places in Ireland You Should Definitely Never Visit. Really, though. I might want to visit it for the history of it because if it's haunted, that means there's a history, right? Maybe it's a history of ancient times, or maybe it's just a modern history of places being haunted because of everyday things. Let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see what kind of a vibe we come up with here.
In at number 5 we have Loftus Hall. This place may be the most haunted house in all of Ireland, and it is said to be haunted by the devil himself. Loftus Hall is a large country house located on the Hook Peninsula in County Wexford. In 1170 Raymond le Gros came to the county and built this massive castle which was known as the Houseland Castle. The Redmond family replaced the original castle with another in about 1350. This second castle was known as the Hall, or Redmond Hall. Later in 1872 John Henry Wellington Graham Loftus undertook an extensive rebuilding of the entire mansion, adding many of the famous elements like the grand staircase, mosaic tiled floor, elaborate parquet flooring, and technical elements that hadn't been seen in houses in Ireland at the time, such as flushing toilets and blown air heating. Charles Tottenham became the lord of the manor in 1752 by marrying the Honourable Anne Loftus, daughter of the first Viscount Loftus, and they had 6 children. However, his wife became ill and died while the girls were still young. 2 years later, Tottenham married his cousin Jane Cliff, and they lived together, along with one of Charles's daughters in Loftus Hall. One evening, Charles was resting in his home in 1775 with his second wife and daughter from his first marriage, Anne, while the Loftus family were away on business. During a storm, a ship unexpectedly arrived at the Hook Peninsula, where the mansion was located. A young man was welcomed into the mansion. Anne and the young man became very close. One night, the family and the mysterious man were in the games room playing cards, and it was then when Anne noticed the man having a cloven foot. The man went up through the roof, ultimately leading to his demise and leaving behind a large hole in the ceiling which remains today. Soon Anne became mentally ill. It's believed that the family were ashamed of Anne and locked her away in her favourite room, which was known as the tapestry room. She refused food and drink and sat with her knees under her chin looking out the tapestry room window, waiting for her mysterious stranger to return until she passed away in the tapestry room in 1775. Wow. It is said that when she died they could not straighten her body as her muscles had seized, and she was buried in the same sitting position in which she had died. After her death, everyone who had lived there says she still haunts the hall to this day. After being purchased by Aidan Quigley in 2011, this building was marketed as a haunted house that hosted guided tours of the house until 2020 when it was put on the market for sale. In at number 4 we have the Abbey of the Black Hag. The old abbey lies on a small valley about 2 miles east of the village.
Have you ever noticed? And it's only recently you see horror stories about just ordinary houses and stuff. But back when I was growing up, you know what I mean? It was always like some old mansion. You know, it kind of makes you wonder, why the hell rich people always haunt the people that come into the house, you know what I mean? You could say it's because they weren't satisfied, you know what I mean? They didn't live a satisfied life, so they're just hanging around trying to find that. And when they can't find it because they're no longer with us and they can't go out and physically make it happen. Because you have to make it happen physically, you can't just make it happen spiritually, you know, because having people around is part of the whole experience, right? But if you can't really touch that person, which touch is important, and you can't really communicate with anybody, you become miserable and then you start haunting people. Oh my God, I'm just babbling about it here, but I've noticed that, man. Back in the days, always some castle where rich people live that is haunted. It's just not satisfied.
Village of Shannon Golden in the townland of the Old Abbey. One of the earliest nunneries in Ireland, it is first mentioned in 1298 and was founded on land donated by John Fitzthomas of Conello, who had died in 1261. Remains include the Abbey church with 2 small spaces adjacent, and one appears to have been a sacristy and a vaulted building to the west. There are also walls and a gate and traces of an orchard, a fish pond and a pigeon house. Modifications to the church in the 15th century saw the inclusion of an east window in the church as well as a door doorway in the north. Traces of window decoration, columns, and carved tombstones remain. Burials were also located and the church plate was reportedly found in the late 18th century. It is said that the last abbess terrified the local population with her use of the black arts and sexual practices in a room to the south of the church, and is now called the Black Hag cell. After the closure of the abbey, the hag remained there and continued to perform her unholy acts, and it's believed she lived unusually long, which caused her ancient skin to become darker and darker over time. Another legend is regarding the Earl of Desmond, and that during his escape from one of the many battles between the Geraldines and the Butlers, the Countess was wounded by an arrow. The wound was so serious that the Earl believed the Countess had died and buried her beneath the altar in the main chapel. The Countess awoke to find herself buried alive, and when people would see a ghostly figure, they went to her gravesite and they had found her finger bones had been worn out from clawing at the coffin, and it's believed her screams can still be heard to this day. In at number 3 we have Cork
Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't find it scary to go there, thinking it's haunted. Because I look at it for its historical value more than anything else. Because obviously there's some battles there between the rich people for territory or something, you know what I mean? So it probably have its own little history, not because of the haunting, but because of the community that was around it and and all the historical stuff that happened there. And it doesn't mean that history is on a national level or a worldwide level. It could just be the history of that small area right there. You know what I mean? They had their own little battles and stuff going on. Let's keep watching.
District Lunatic Asylum. The Cork District Lunatic Asylum opened in 1789, and by 1845 the Irish Lunatics Asylum Act allowed for appropriating the lunatic asylum in the city of Cork to the purposes of a district lunatic asylum. The legislation provided for 2 new asylums, a criminal one in Dundrum, Dublin, and then a 500-bed asylum in Cork. This building was originally in 3 separate blocks, later to be joined together in the interest of providing more accommodation. To become the longest facade of any building in the country, it opened in 1852. William Saunders Halloran was an Irish psychiatrist who worked at this asylum from the time it opened until his death, and was the author of practical observations on the causes and cure of insanity. This doctor's methods were extreme and torturous. He created something called the Halloran's chair, which rotated hysterical patients up to 100 revolutions per minute. It rarely had the desired effect. Inmates lived out their days in a state of paranoia and despair while admitted at the asylum. The horrors of this place finally ended when the asylum was closed in 1992. It stayed abandoned for many years, and locals and tourists went to visit this scary place. They claim the tortured souls still remain here, and paranormal investigators even visited and claimed to have seen both and heard voices of these tormented souls. Today the building is being converted and renovated into apartments called Atkins Hall.
Now, here's the thing about that I want to say. Places like that, you could explain the haunt away. You could explain the haunt away as to us not understanding or not being able to witness the afterlife for ourselves and know what's there. So if somebody has mental issues, we think that in the afterlife they're going to be around haunting us. That is why places like those are always portrayed as haunted, especially where atrocities happen. Now, could it be something to explain, especially in an asylum like that, explain why they like that? Because most people don't understand mental issues. Because even today we try to brush it aside, especially with the homeless and stuff. And I'm speaking about where I am in specifically. But it's not a matter of not understanding it while they're alive. And so in some kind of strange way keeping them around as ghosts in our own psyche. And what are we looking for, in a strange time, we're looking for an answer to why they were the way they were. You can see the same thing for rich people too, who, all the rich houses with ghosts and stuff in it. Let's see if they put in any small, ordinary houses that had any kind of a ghost. And I'm not saying there's no ghost. I don't know. Well, I haven't seen one yet, so
Number 2, we have the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club is located on Mount Pellier Hill in Dublin. The building gets its name because it's believed to be one of the first Freemason lodges in Ireland. Around 1725, William Connolly, who was one of the wealthiest men in Ireland at the time, built this building to be a hunting lodge. Years after the build, the roof was blown off during a storm, and locals believed it was the work of an aggressive spirit seeking vengeance on Connolly for building on their land, and that's when the story started swirling. After Connolly's death, the building was quickly sold and is said to have become a meeting place for the Irish Hellfire Club. The club was founded in 1735 by Richard Parsons, a known dabbler in black magic. The members met at locations across Dublin and were known for their immoral behaviour and debauchery involving alcohol and sex. The secrecy surrounding the club members led to speculation that they were Satanists and devil worshippers. The president of the club was named the King of Hell and dressed like Satan with horns, wings and hooves. The members were said to set a place at each meeting for the devil in the hopes that he would attend. They were also said to hold black masses in the lodge, during which cats and even servants were sacrificed. Some say the building was deliberately set on fire in order to enhance its hellish atmosphere. The best known Hellfire Club story is the one in which the devil himself appears. A stranger joined the members at a game of cards. At some point, one of the card players dropped a card on the floor. As he bent down to retrieve it, he noticed that the stranger had cloven hooves instead of feet. Another tale concerns a young farmer, curious to find out what went on in the meetings. Climbing up Mount Pellier Hill one night, he was invited by members of the club and allowed to witness the night's activities. He was found the next morning trembling and terrified. Tradition says he spent the rest of his life unable to speak, unable even to remember his name. The Hellfire Club remains burnt out and abandoned on Montpellier Hill looking over Dublin. It is a beautiful sight on a sunny day, but make sure you leave before night. It's a beautiful sight on a sunny day, but make sure you leave before night comes, because you may come into contact with the unusual smells, ghostly apparitions or paranormal sightings. And it's said that satanic rituals are known to be done here. And finally,
See how crazy that is? Exactly what I was saying there. What a perfect place to have like a secret club. A place that's purportedly haunted. So you could carry on. If people are so afraid to go to that place while you're living there or have your clubhouse there, they can't come see what kind of craziness you're doing there. I'm not talking about satanic worship and stuff. That's probably just added to the lore of what's going on in there. That's my kind of insight on that. But it would keep people away if you tell them, or if you have a place where ghosts may be. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? But what really goes on behind the walls in those places? Because it's probably rich people in that club, right? So they're probably doing their business deals and stuff back there too. And maybe there is debauchery. And I don't know how if this was one of them, but a lot of times back then, they were just clubs for men. They were not, women weren't allowed. So they just meant to do what they want in there, and it'll stay a secret in there. Start rumors about satanic worship and stuff and all of that, you know, people not going to want to go there. Let's see what number 1 is here.
Finally, in at number 1 we have Leap Castle. Of the many haunted places in Ireland, Leap Castle is possibly the most notorious of all, and is one of the most well-known symbols of haunted Ireland. This place is located in Kildare in County Offaly. There are many accounts of when the main tower was constructed, but could go back as far as 1250 CE and was built by the O'Bannon clan. The O'Bannons were the secondary chieftains of the territory and were subject to the ruling O'Carroll's clan. There are many stories of who or what haunts this place. A red lady ghost is reported to walk the halls holding a dagger, and also 2 little girls named Charlotte and Emily are reported to run up and down the spiral staircase in the mansion. A red lady ghost is reported to walk the halls holding a dagger, and also 2 girls named Charlotte and Emily are reported to run up and down the spiral staircase in the mansion. Emily passed away after she fell from the top of the castle's tower, and Charlotte can still be seen running around after her sister and calling her name. The castle was visited by paranormal investigators from shows like Most Haunted and Scariest Places on Earth. These investigators believe the castle is haunted by a sinister elemental spirit. The creature is described as being about the size of a sheep with a human face, black holes for eyes and nose, and giving off the smell of a rotting corpse. During renovation of the castle in the 1900s, workers found an oubliette behind a wall in the chapel. At the bottom of the shaft were many human skeletons on wooden spikes. When cleaned out, it took 3 cartloads to remove the bones. Today, the dungeon is now covered over in order to keep people away from it. It's believed that the O'Carrolls would drop guests through the trapdoor to be impaled on the spikes 8 feet below and could be haunted by the people killed by the O'Carrolls. The castle describes itself as the world's most haunted house, due to the numerous amounts of spirits located here. Coming in at number 5, we have Ballygally Castle. The Ballygally Castle is said to be one of the most haunted.
Wow, that's crazy. Seems like Ireland was had all these clans, and it seems like it's just rich people owning land and being the leaders because they are the rich people, which is not unlike what we are right now. Now they just go into politics and they rule us all. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was a nice one there. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to look into haunted places in other in the other countries that I react to. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I'll leave a link in the description to this video so y'all can go check it out. Y'all take care of each other, alright? Cool runnings.